Shabbat Shalom. Happy Sabbath. We are indeed thankful this morning that we have come because Yah has spared our lives to come and give him the honor and the praise that he truly deserves. And so I wonder this morning, who among us will deny that we are at that moral place where generation Noah was before the great flood? Because in that day, morality plagued the people, even as it plagues us now. Why? Because righteousness has become a matter of personal taste. People go to church often because it feeds their desires, not really as Yah says. And so the church has become like a restaurant. They attend because it serves the religion that best feeds their moral and ethical taste. And so the people are dancing to the tune of their DNA. And the band that is playing is the band that played at Belshazzar's banquet, in the ballrooms of Sodom and Gomorrah. It is then I hear the people say how it was such a great praise and worship service. But yet they were dancing to the tunes of their DNA. And so the tithes and the offerings they give in these restaurant churches, it is unto them as if they are tipping the waiter. And someone ought to tell them it is not a tip to the waiter, but it is a gift to the Creator. They ought to know that. Because the question is there another being in existence, transcendent or resplendent? The aseity, self-derived, for whose being is in himself only. Is there one? Is there another one in existence who lives out of time, whose beginning never commenced because he pre-existed? Is there such a person? He is the uncaused cause, being invisible, omnipotent and omniscient, the one in whom all existences find their existence. He is the source. Is there such a one? The scriptures make no mention of another person like that. And so it is he who called us this morning. It is he who appointed this day for us to worship. And so those who have violated such principles, those who have not listened to the word, are now in deficit financing, in that they have overspent their account of grace. And so our subject this morning, Yah's justice of his mercy. His justice of his mercy. You see, sin has to be dealt with. It has to be dealt with. And at the same time, we know Yah is a loving Yah. That's his character. That's his very nature. And so the question this morning is, how does he reconcile justice and mercy? And so we want to look at that this morning. Because he himself declared in Isaiah 46 and verse 9, he says, remember the former things of old, for I am Yah, and there is no other. I am Yah, and there is none like me. There's none like me. I have no peer, says Yah. So if we have this transcendent being whose beginning never commenced because he pre-existed, and he is the uncaused being whose is the cause of all of the existences, the question is, how can you afford not to listen to him and to obey him? How? Well, it's simple, because you're dancing to the tune of your DNA. Whatever your feelings tell you, that's what you do, and you think that's an offering to Yah, and he says you can't do that. You cannot do that. And so this morning we want to look firstly at what happened in ancient Babylon, so that we can use that as a periscope to look at what is going to happen in spiritual Babylon, Mr. Babylon. So come with me to the book of Daniel, and that's chapter 5 of that book. And the word says, Belshazzar, the sovereign, made a great feast for 1,000 of his great men, and drank wine in the presence of 1,000. And perhaps you'd ask yourself, and you say, what has changed? What has changed? We're talking here 6th century BC, because Babylon was destroyed in 539 by Cyrus. We know that. And what's interesting is that Babylon was destroyed on the 12th of October. It was in the season of tabernacle. Jupiter was positioned directly in the golden gateway of the ecliptic. That was the celestial position of Jupiter at that time, and the same position Jupiter will be in on the 9th of October, that's next week. It is interesting. And so we want to look at that to contextualize our study this morning. The word said, Belshazzar, the sovereign, made a banquet. While tasting the wine, Belshazzar gave orders to bring the gold and the silver vessels which his father Nebuchadnezzar had taken from the Echo, that's the temple, which had been in Jerusalem, that's Jerusalem, that the sovereign and his great men, his wives and his concubines, drank from them. We're dealing with physical Babylon, so the vessels here, the holy vessel that were taken from the temple, means that in spiritual Babylon, these are human vessels. They're human vessels. And they will be taken from the temple, and they will align themselves and mingle themselves, commingle themselves with the world, with Babylon. That's what is happening today, and we need to understand that. And so then they brought the gold vessels. You could read that futuristically and say, then they brought the people that had been in the temple, the worshipers, the Christians of the house of Yah, which had been in Jerusalem, and the sovereign and his great men, his wives, and his concubine drank from them. Pollute them. Because when the church mingles with the world, the word wants you to know that it is polluted. But as he drank that night, this insolent monarch, this impudent monarch, as he drank from those vessels that were used prior to that to do Passover, to do Feast of Weeks and Tabernacle, as he drank from them, the word tells us that Cyrus, King Cyrus, the Persian king, who 150 years before he was born, Yah named him in the book of Isaiah, named him. So as he drank with his great men at this banquet, Cyrus at the time is dredging. He is dredging the river Perath. He is dredging that river that runs through Babylon, the river Perath. We call that river the Euphrates. And in time, they would come up through the riverbed on the 12th of October, 539 BC. And the word tells us that as they drank, a bloodless hand appeared on the wall in Babylon, and right on the wall, it doesn't seem as if the others had seen it, but the king saw it. Can you not see the writing on the wall of this world? Can you not see the writing on the wall? As the men of this world and the women, they drank liquor, tainting their breath with tobacco. Can you not see it? Because if we understand the physical, we will understand the spiritual. It says the river Euphrates was dredged, and Cyrus came up through the Euphrates River, and that night, as the bloodless hand wrote on the wall, "Meeny, meeny, tickle, O parson." O king, you have been weighed in the balance. Justice must be served. You have been given grace, but you have overspent your grace. You are in deficit financing. You see, our subject is Yah's justice of his mercy. We have to reconcile how Yah has to deal with justice and mercy at the same time. How? We, as human beings, we have difficulty dealing with that. How does he do that? And so the word says that as he saw that bloodless hand, his knees began to applaud him. He is trembling at his own party. It is interesting that even now in the news, we're looking at the situation where parties or people who are attending a particular party are now in the news. Belshazzar's party was like that. And no one understood the writings of that bloodless hand because they were not schooled in the schools of the prophets. They did not invite Daniel to that party. But somebody somehow remembered that there was a man in the kingdom who could interpret these things. Sometimes people only want you for conveniences. But other the time, they don't want you at all. They don't want you at all. And so those people who come to have a nice time and think the church is Belshazzar's party, and when you speak to them, they don't like it at all, and invariably they leave. You say, don't dress like that when you come here. Don't do that. This is not Belshazzar's party. You don't have to wear yourself and your jewels as if your earrings are hula hoops. You don't do that here. You don't show aspects of your anatomy to people who have no business seeing it. Here, they leave. But Yohanan speaks to them, and he says in Yohanan Aleph, that's 1 John chapter 2 and verse 19, he says, they went out from us, but they were not of us. For if they had been of us, they would no doubt have continued with us, but they went out that they might made themselves that they were not at all of us. They were not with you. They were here sitting down, but their minds were not with you. They were not committed to the assembly. That's what John wants us to know. And so that obscure slang used in political discourses, cancel culture, has crept into the church. And people think they can cancel Yah. No, you can't. You cannot cancel Almighty Yah. And that's why he's no longer speaking to some of them. They are not on speaking terms with Yah in this cancel culture church that exists. Because they're treating the church as if it's a restaurant. We go in and we take what we want and we leave it. No, it's a package. The word of Yah is a package. You take it or you leave it. And the truth is, if you have not made a decision to follow Yeshua, you have already made a decision to follow Satan. Are you with me? You have. And so the word says that Cyrus came up and took this ancient Oriental empire we call Babylon. And that included Iraq, Syria, and even Israel itself, because Israel was in that part of the world at that time because they were in captivity. And so we need to understand that. Lebanon too. And you see all these little nations are rising up even at this time in October. You see that. It happened then because Yah said, I will speak to you through the stars and the moon. He said that in Genesis chapter 1 and verse 14. And as I indicated earlier, Jupiter will be in the same position as it was 2,500 years ago this month. So that perhaps is telling us something, that Mr. Babylon is about to fall. Come with me, therefore, to the book of Chizayon, Revelation chapter 16 that was read earlier. Because the word says in verse 12 of the same chapter, the sixth angel, the sixth messenger, poured out his bowl on the great river Perath. That's the Euphrates. And its water was drying up in order to prepare the way of the sovereigns of the East. Now, we are living 2,500 years removed from the fall of physical Babylon. And the same thing that happened then under Cyrus, King Cyrus, is happening now. Who among us have not seen the writing on the wall? Which one? That 2,500 years ago, the same thing happened. The star, the celestial position were the same as they are now, and we have not seen the handwriting on the wall. Did you not read? It says, the East, the armies of the East, they're coming. Even as the Euphrates, the Perath River, dries up. Come on. Come on. Then it says, verse 14, for they are, well, let's read verse 13. And I saw out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet, 3 unclean spirits, as frogs. This means that as time unfolds, you are going to get a lot of cocoa bear. That's what he's saying. Unclean spirits. For they are spirits of demons, doing signs which go out to the sovereigns of the entire world, to gather them to battle at that great day of Yah El Shaddai. He says, the armies, 200 million of them, are coming from the east. And they're coming to battle against a little country in the valley of a place called Megiddo, the valley of Armageddon. They're coming. Now, if you see the Euphrates drying up, surely that ought to tell you something, and it's happening there. But at the same time, what is happening in the church? What is happening? You better come with me to the book of Yeshayahu. That's the book of Isaiah. And let's focus our eyes on chapter 4. And the word says, and in that day, what day? The same period of time that we're talking about. That day, 7 women will take hold of one man. All the churches we see in Revelation chapter 2 and Revelation chapter 3, 7 women, because we know that the church is symbolized as a woman. In Jeremiah chapter 6 and verse 2, it says, I have likened the daughter of Zion to a comely and delicate woman. So we know that. He says the 7 churches, the 7 assembly. Now you understand in part why Satan, the devil, has 7 heads. Because ever since the church was in existence, it has been watching the woman to deceive the woman, even as he deceived Eve in every era. Every era. Where were the churches? The churches were, the 7 churches in Asia Minor, in Turkey. And the word tells us in that period that we call Pergamos, that Satan's seat was in Turkey, was in Pergamos. And so you see, he's keeping this watch based on the prophecy of Genesis chapter 3 and verse 15. I will put enmity. There's going to be conflict, war between Satan's seed and the woman's seed. So we can't even tolerate those who allow themselves to be used by Satan to come in the assembly and dance to the tune of Belshazzar's band. We can't do that. We have to call them out, even as you should call them out wherever you see them in the place where you worship. But as I indicated earlier, they get upset and they get angry and they leave. And they think they can take that to another restaurant church. That's what they do. And they don't even bat an eyelid and think that next Sabbath, all that they have done will be judged. Next Sabbath is a day when Yah looks and brings the records in review before him. Each year, what we do, we pray and we ask for forgiveness throughout the year. And we're forgiven if we be faithful in our request. But if your sins are only forgiven, you're still in bad shape. Your sins need to be expunged from the record. They need to be blotted out. But the word in Leviticus chapter 16 tells us that that happens on the 10th day of the 7th month, the day of Yom Kippur. That's the day of judgment. The church says we don't keep that. Did you hear me, what I said? I said, Yah declared that he wants to meet with his family of believers on the 10th day of the 7th month, which is the day of judgment, the day of Yom Kippur. And the church, by reason of the cancellation of it by Constantine, decided that they would not keep it. You can't cancel, yeah. And so the sadness is this, that the people who will not keep it are being judged on this day. Wow. It is the day, it is the time of year when Yah decides who will live and who will die on the day of judgment. The church says, we don't keep it. They don't turn up for court at this great assize, this great legal assize. In Deuteronomy 16 and verse 16, Yah said, I want you to keep all of these. Passover, Feast of Weeks, Tabernacle. Everybody must keep them. The church says, we don't. We don't. And so the church is in bad shape. You understand why Yah says that Laodicea is blind, it's poor, it's wretched. Are you with me? And it's naked. It's not wearing righteousness. Because Isaiah says, Isaiah, is writing some 700 years before Yeshua comes. So we're talking about 2,700 years. He's writing and he's letting you know what the church is going to be. 7 women is going to take hold of one man, Yeshua. But what are they saying? They're saying, we don't want to, what? Eat his food. We're not going to eat his bread. His word is his bread. The word of Yah is the manna that he feeds his people with. They say, we're not going to eat it, and we're not going to wear his clothes. We are not going to wear his righteousness. We prefer to get those nice, fine clothes from Italy. It's still Rome. You're wearing Babylonian garments. That's what we wear. And you know how they come in these spikes, heels, and they come and they think they're well dressed, and the word says you're naked. You're naked. And if you speak to them, They're gone down to another restaurant. I mean, church. That's how they do it. And so these women, listen to them, in that day, the branch of Yahweh shall be splendid and esteemed, and the full of the earth shall be excellent and comely for the escapes of Israel. The exiles, they've come back. The women said, we're not doing it. They said, we want his name, but not his righteousness. We want to be called believers. We want to be called Christians, but not his character. That's what they're saying. The women, the churches. But they forget what Peter says. 1 Peter 4 and verse 17, judgment starts where? In the house of Yah. So on Yom Kippur, next Sabbath, he says, when the records come in review, our records, he starts to look at the church first. Judgment starts on the house of, but those people will not be in attendance, so they won't be in court. So when you are subpoenaed to appear in court and you don't, a warrant goes out for your arrest. Hear me? The bailiff comes. Hear me? The bailiff knocks at your door because you are now in contempt of court. The only difference is Yah's bailiff is not the same as the bailiffs in your local court. We are told in the book of Exodus that it was at midnight that Yah's bailiff came. And at midnight that angel of death came. And those who did not have the blood splashed on the lintels of their door, it needs to be in your heart now. The firstborn among them, non-Hebrew children, died. Why? They were in contempt of court because they did not kill the lamb. They did not put the blood on the lintel. They did not participate in Passover. They did not do that. We need to understand that the writing is on the wall. And even as you see, the world now is asking you to make bricks without straw. They're doing that. It's sad. And so the women are doing that. So come over or flip back to chapter 3 of the same book, Yeshayahu, Isaiah. A word says that the women, they're giving trouble. And Yahweh says, because, I'm reading from verse 16 now, and Yahweh says, because the daughters of Zion are haughty. They're what? Haughty. And walk with outstretched necks. They're impudent. They're insolent. They're full of pride and seductive eyes. That's the churches. Walking and mincing as they go, making a jingling with their feet. They're jingling and they're jangling. You ever been to those churches? Well, Isaiah said they exist. They're jingling with their feet. Therefore, Yahweh shall smite with a scab the crown of the head of the daughters of Zion, and Yahweh expose their nakedness. Did you hear me? They are not righteous. So he's going to expose their nakedness. Because when you speak to them about righteousness, they don't want to know. They want to go to another place where no one holds them accountable for righteousness. They can do as they please. And if they do give anything or commit anything, they think they're tipping you. Tithes and offering are not tips. Yes, the earth is mine, and all that dwell in it. Bring ye therefore into the storehouse, so that there will be food for the poor. That's what he says. And you feel you've done a good job because you've left a tip. You cannot tip Yah, you cannot cancel Yah. He is self-derived. Is the uncaused cause. He is your source. Didn't you know that? So he says that he's going to take away all that from them. And in that day, Yahweh takes away the finery of the anklets and the headbands and the crescents, the pendants and the bracelets and the veils, the headdresses, and the leg ornaments, and the sashes, and the perfume. Did you hear me? All your Chanel, number 5. He says, I'll take it away, and the amulets, and the rings, and the nose jewels, and the costly robes, and the cloaks, and the shawls, and the purses, and the mirrors, and the fine linen, and the turbans, and the large veils, and it shall be, it's going to take away your hearings as well. And instead of the sweet fragrance, a smell of decay, it will make you stink, even as Levi and Simeon made Jacob sting. There's a stench, because you have wallowed in filth. You ought to know by now that every time you kill a skunk, a stench remains. You know that. Yes, and I'm going to do that to you because you are haughty. You're full of pride. You think you can just move from one place to the next when people speak to you about righteousness. No, he said you can't do that. He says, wherever you go, wherever you worship, wherever 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, the righteousness should be the same. Should be the same. He wants you to know that. So stop dancing to the tune of your DNA. And so Daniel is called in to interpret the sing. Because since October 7th, a year ago, in Gaza, there have been principled interactions, written and spoken, between the linguistic context and the biblical interpretation of what is going on. We have seen how the military context interacts with the lexical context. And so I ask the question, who is so stout in knowledge to challenge, to cancel Yah's word? Which of us? We are sometimes prone to smell rotten eggs than we are willing to lay good ones. You see, we look at the situation over there and we contrive explanation for it, and we fall into the trance of emotions. Oh, such and such has done that, and that person has done that, and therefore that ought not to be done. And nobody bothered to ask, what does Yah say? What does Yah say? And so the scriptures provide an antonym view, an opposite view to what the world has of these events as they unfold in the land of Israel and elsewhere. It would seem, therefore, that the timing has been heightened by the existential relevance of what is going on, crucial to the understanding of the predicate argument. And so the prophet Moshe wrote, he who took dictation from Yah, he asserted that the argument that is really the predicate of our subject today is that, turn with me to Leviticus chapter 25, because this really is the predicate of what we're talking about today. The predicate is what the subject does. It says, the land shall not be sold forever. For the land is mine. It's whose? I hear people say the land is the Jews. Have you heard that? And I'm saying, ever since Yah created this land, it was his, and he gives it to whomever he pleases. And it has never been a biological inheritance. Had it been a biological inheritance, then the Canaanites would still have been there. It's for people who live in obedience to the Torah. The land is mine, for ye are strangers and sojourners with me. You are with him, is the landowner, the eternal landowner. And in all the land of your possession, he shall grant a redemption for the land. If thy brother be waxen poor and hath sold away some of his possession, and if any of his kin come to redeem it, then shall he redeem that which is his brother sold. The land is mine. As I read the news, though, in the newspaper, I hear that people were fighting for the land. But Yah says, it is his. It is his. It is his. So, if the land is Yah and we're all sojourners with him, how can we fight for something that's not ours? Yah says, this land is where I'm going to put my throne. I'm going to reign on the earth from this location. Let me say that again, because I think there is a risk it might miss some of us. Yah says, my throne will be placed here in Zion. I'm coming to establish David's tabernacle. That's what I'm going to do. And in that day when I come, the whole of Israel, not necessarily the people there now, but the people who will be living at that time, reigning with you, they will be Kodesh. They will be holy. My people are going to be holy, who lives there with me. They will acknowledge the Messiah. That's what he says. Now, let's assume for a moment you were king of a domain and you're planning to bring your headquarters, your throne, because John says he saw the new Jerusalem coming down on the earth. John says he saw that. So you're a king, and you have a domain, you're planning to colonize that place and come and rule there. And then you heard an army from another place, from the east, they are coming, 200 million of them, to blow up your place. What would you do? Where Yah is going to put his throne, they're going to blow it up? Did you get the impact of that? He said, when you see the Euphrates drying up, Mr. Babylon is about to fall. even as physical Babylon fell when the Euphrates River was diverted. It's there in the word. So, Zachariah has something to say. That end time prophet. If you read when you have time, you better find time. Chapter 12 to 14, chapter 12 to chapter 14, you will see something unfold to your eye. But this morning, let's come to chapter 12, and let's look at a few verses there. Because the word said, the burden of the word of Yah for Israel, said Yah, which stretcheth forth the heavens and layeth the foundation of the earth. He's telling you who he is. Did you get me? He's saying Zachariah provides this aperture, this prophetic window, this louver in the ceiling of time through which the spirit of prophecy flows. Are you with me? It's as if Zachariah is moving those windows, those veils from the window, and giving you a peep in the future. He says, listen to how he addresses the thing, the burden of the word of Yah for Israel. He has a burden for Israel. And I don't want anyone to misunderstand Israel here. Israel is a people that are observant to the Torah and obedient to Yah, who will in time, like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, inherit the kingdom of Yah. Israel is not a biological inheritance. You don't get Israel because you're born there. You must be born in Zion or reborn to be born in Zion. Understand that. Many today are professing to be Israelites, but have not accepted the Messiah. It's a fallacy. No man cometh to the Father except they come through the Son. And I mean S-O-N. And he shines on you, S-U-N. So you can spell that anyhow you want to. Many have claimed to be Abraham's children, but Paul wants you to know in Galatians 3:29 that if you be in Yeshua, only then, I can't emphasize this point enough, only then are you Abraham's seed. And he is according to the promise. So we've got to understand that. So Zachariah, he says, it is Yah who stretched forth the heavens like a canopy, and laid the foundation of the earth and formed the spirit of man in him. Who? Now, you see the ridiculous nature of things. Yah puts the spirit of himself in man, and man is using that spirit and the gifts that he gives them to come and fight against him, to blow up the location where his throne is going to be. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a trembling unto all people. How many people? All people around about, when they shall be in the siege both against Judah and against Jerusalem. Zechariah is saying a time is coming, and we see that time emerging. There is a nascent view taking place. He says the time is coming when the nations of the world are going to come against Jerusalem. We're seeing that now. And in that day, I will make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all. Have you ever seen back home when people are carrying stones on their heads? It says this is going to be a burdensome stone for all those who come against Jerusalem. And in that day, I will make Jerusalem a burdensome stone. All that burden themselves with it shall be cut to pieces. Did you hear me? They will be cut to pieces. Though all the people of the earth be gathered together against it, in that day said Yah, I will smite every horse with astonishment, and his rider with madness. And I will open mine eyes upon the house of Judah, and will smite every horse of the people with blindness. Did you get that? That's why they didn't see the handwriting on the wall. They didn't see the drying up the Euphrates, and they did not understand what it means. It says, watch now, look to the east. The armies of the east, 200 million of them are coming, and the sign that you're seeing through the Euphrates is telling you they're heading towards Jerusalem. They're heading. They're heading. Wow. And so this is something to ponder, is it not? Because the calling is perennial. The calling is one that never wanes. Come with me to Exodus chapter 19, and we look at verse 5 and 6. And it says, now therefore, if you will obey my voice, obey what? My voice, and keep my covenant, then you shall be a special treasure to me above all people. You need to understand, because I hear people say, oh, he was speaking to the Israelites, the children of Israel. Remember, the people who left Egypt, the people who left North Africa, it was a mixed multitude. But when he spoke to them about his covenant, the Ten Commandments, he says, if you obey me, it didn't matter where you're from. Didn't matter at all where you were born. But if you obey me, you will be unto me a treasure. Not only a treasure, a special treasure unto me of all the people in the world. And you shall be to me a kingdom of priests. Did you hear me? A kingdom, not a nation. A kingdom of priests. This is not singular. This is plural. Way back when we were under the colonization of Britain in the Caribbean, all those countries, island nations, were under the covenant, the kingdom of Great Britain, but they were not one country. So when Yah spoke morality to the people at Mount Sinai, he's letting them know it doesn't matter where you're born, it's where you're reborn. Now you're reborn in Zion, you must live as people in Zion live. Are you with me? You are to me a kingdom of priests. But soon after, they cuddled up to a golden calf, and then they broke the covenant, and he gave them the book of the law instead of the book of the covenant. And that led them to the Messiah, according to Luke chapter 16 and 16, because the law and the prophets were preached up until John, but now the kingdom. That's why we're preaching the kingdom. So Yah realizes that since Adam sinned, and all have sinned, and have come short. And the wages of sin is death, so he has to deal with sin. Justice must be served. But he's a Yah of love. Yah is loved. And if what you do is not loving, don't call it Yah. Don't call it godly. It's not love. Are you with me? Often I hear people say, well, I was married, but I fell in love with another person. That's lust. Love is Yah, and if Yah is love, then love is Yah. So whatever you do that is not loving, it's not Yah. It's someone else. Are you with me? So Yah says to Moses, and I'm just showing you now as we bring this thing to a head. He's saying, I want to show you how I reconcile my justice with my mercy. Moses, Exodus chapter 25 and verse 8. Build me a sanctuary. Build me a sanctuary that I may dwell with you. And Moses put the ark, the tablets of stone that I gave you, into the chest that I'm asking you to build. Put it in there. Put it in there. And Moses, build me a mercy seat of pure gold and put it on top of the ark. Put it on top of the ark. And bring the ark in the most holy place. There is the meeting place where I meet you. And I will be there in the Shekinah glory looking down on the ark and the mercy seat there. This is where justice shakes hands with mercy. That's how he reconciles it. He said, if you obey me, all that you have done in violation, I will give you forgiveness. I will expunge your records. It's as if you have never sinned. That's why I sent my son to die for you, because he took on all your iniquity so you don't have to die. I'm going to give you life in abundance. All you have to do is to be obedient. If you obey me. But he says the women, the churches are haughty. They're haughty. They're haughty. Yah says, wherefore the children of Yisrael shall keep the Sabbath. They shall do what? Keep the Sabbath. I'm reading from Exodus chapter 31, and I'm reading verses 16 and 17. Wherefore the children of Yisrael, who are covenanted with me, shall keep the Shabbat to observe the Sabbath throughout their generations, plural, for a perpetual covenant. Perpetual. It doesn't stop. It is a sign between me and the children of Yisrael forever. For in 6 days Yah made heaven and earth, and in the seventh day he rested and was refreshed. He said, I want you to keep this Sabbath, the weekly cycle Sabbath, and I want you to keep the annual Sabbaths. The church says, some of the churches, we will keep the first day. Others said we will keep the seventh day, but none of us will keep the feast days. Who are you listening to? Who are you listening to? And he speaks to you, even as he spoke to Ephraim. He says, Ephraim is joined to his idols. Leave him alone. Leave him alone. They won't hear you. Leave them alone. Come with me to Hosea 7. 7 to 9. They are all hot as an oven. Wow. And have devoured their judges. All their kings are fallen. How many? All their kings are fallen. There is none among them that calleth unto me. Ephraim, he hath mixed himself among the people. He's done what? He has mixed himself among the people. Ephraim is a cake not turned. Wow. Strangers have devoured his strength, and he knoweth it not. Yea, gray hairs are here and there upon him, yet he knoweth not. He's getting old. And because of the way he has conducted himself. Now you got to remember who Ephraim is. Ephraim is one of the children that Joseph had with who? Rachel. And Jacob blessed them and put his name on them, saying, these are Israel. These North African boys. Now you understand what Jeremiah is writing about when he said, Rachel is crying. She's weeping because her children are no more. Her children are no more. That's Jeremiah 31, 15 to 17. So let's go to Psalm 87. His foundation is in the holy mountains. This is the place they're planning to blow up. Yah loveth the gates of Zion. Where? He loveth the gates of Zion more than all the dwellings of Jacob. Glorious things are spoken of thee, O city of Yah, Selah. I will make mention of Rahab in Babylon to them that know me. Behold, Philistia and Tyre and Ethiopia. This man was born there, and of Zion it shall be said, this and that man was born in her, and the highest himself shall establish her. Yah shall count when he writeth up the people. Don't miss that. Yah said, wherever you're born, if you're born in Zion, when he writeth up the people, when does he do that? He does it on the Day of Atonement, next Sabbath. When he writeth up the people that this man was born there. Don't let him write that you were born in Rome under Constantine. Don't let him write that. As well as the singers, as the players of instrument shall be there. All my springs are in thee. He's calling us. Listen to him in Ezekiel 18:23. Have I any pleasure at all that the wicked shall perish? Said Yah, Elohim, and not that he should return from his ways and live. But when the righteous turneth away from his righteousness and commit iniquity, and do it according to all the abominations that the wicked man does, shall he live? All his righteousness that he hath done shall not be mentioned. And in his trespass that he hath trespassed, and in his sin that he hath sinned, in them shall he die. Yet it say, the way of Yah is not equal. That's what they say. The way of Yah is not equal. But Yah says, it is, because what I do is that I reconcile my justice with my mercy. O house of Israel, is not my way equal? Are not your ways unequal? It's not me, Yah says. And so we just need now to look at what the word through David wants us to know. What does it say in the Psalm? Let's go to 24 as we bring this to its end, its close. Psalm 24, a psalm of David. The earth belongs to Yahweh and all that fills it, the world and those who dwell in it. For he has founded it upon the seas, and upon the waters he established it. Who goes up into the mountain of Yah? Who? Who goes into the temple of Yah? He's talking about a holy mountain here. Who? And it's not a rhetorical question. And who stands in the Kodesh place? When you go into the house of Yah, make sure you're holy. That's what he's saying. But he wants to know who meets this criteria. He who has innocent hands and a clean heart. Did you hear me? Your bitterness and your strife and your insolence and your unwillingness to obey you go into man's church and you obey man's religion. Yah said, when you come into where I am, that's how you should look. Who did not bring his life to naught and did not swear deceivably? He's saying if you make a claim and you don't live the claim, you have deceived yourself. He received Barak, blessing from Yah, and righteousness from the Elohim of his deliverance. This is the generation of those who seek him. He says the people that you read earlier and the way they conduct themselves when they go into the house of Yah, these people are the ones who are seeking him. Our generation is not seeking him. Clear. Jacob, who seeks your face, Selah, lift up your heads, O ye gates, and be lifted up, your everlasting doors, and let the sovereign, let the king of esteem, let the king of glory come. And they ask, who is the king of glory? Rightly, because some of them don't know him. Who is the king of glory? Yah, strong and mighty, mighty in battle. Lift up your heads, O ye gates, and lift up your everlasting doors, and let the sovereign, the king of esteem, come in. Who is the sovereign of esteem? Who is the king of glory? Yah of hosts, he is the sovereign of esteem. He is, there's none like him. He is the everlasting king. In Yeshua's name we pray, amen.